Hey listeners, Mallory Wilsey here, Chief Producer of the Enrollify Network. I get the privilege of working alongside all of the creators at Enrollify, and I want to take just a moment to tell you about why I love I Want to Work There, a podcast hosted by Eddie Francis. In an era where attracting and keeping talent is more crucial and complex than ever, I Want to Work There dives deep into how colleges and universities can stand out as top employers. Whether you're involved in HR, leadership, or just keen on the dynamics of higher ed employment, this podcast is your new go-to resource. Join Eddie Francis as he tackles the pressing issues of employee recruitment and retention and offers actionable insights for positioning your institution as an employer where everyone wants to work. You can subscribe to the show by visiting podcast.enrollify.org or just search I Want to Work There wherever you get your podcasts.
Welcome to In Your Element, the podcast that unlocks practical wisdom in higher education, where leadership meets real talk. I'm Brendan Hinkle, Manager of Solutions Engineering here at Element451.
And I'm Daniela Norden, Element451's Director of Customer Success and Engagement. Join us every other Thursday for discussions with everyday heroes using Element451 in enrollment, marketing, and student success. We'll unlock the practical tips to help you make waves on your campus.
In Your Element is a part of the Enrollify Network, a robust collection of podcasts designed to help higher education professionals like you grow. Explore our other shows at enrollify.org or check out some of my personal favorites linked in the show notes below.
Enrollify is made possible by Element451, the leading AI-powered all-in-one student engagement platform, helping institutions create meaningful, personalized, and engaging interactions with students. Learn more at element451.com.
Well, we are back at In Your Element, and we have a very awesome guest with us here today, Jenni Katowski from Kellogg Community College. She's the Director of Admissions over there. Jenni, how are you doing? We are so excited to have you on to talk about what Kellogg's doing with Element. So how are you doing?
I'm wonderful. Thank you for having me. I'm really excited to talk about both Kellogg Community College and our experiences with Element451. So I'm looking forward to the conversation.
Awesome. Yeah. And it's so funny. I was telling you about this before, but I was at eLive last week and got to speak with JJ. And it was funny. He said, my least favorite part about Element451 is the fact that I get to work with Jenni less.
Yeah.
And we talk a lot about Element451 empowering end users, admins, and not having to have a CRM admin or incredibly large load put on their IT team. And you all really have taken that to the next level and really showcase that in a way that is exactly how we envision it. So tell us a little bit about that, first of all, and then kind of get what kind of real life experience would you give to others that are trying to accomplish something like that?
Yeah, when we were looking for a product, we were really looking for one that was adaptable for all users. We understand the importance of an IT department, but we didn't have to rely on them solely to help us when a change needed to be made. So we have found Element to be so adaptive. It's pretty user-friendly. Even some of our staff that maybe aren't technology savvy have been able to get in there and really become accustomed to how the system works. I think some great examples is once we got Element up and going, we had been shown how to do an application. We were able to create additional applications as a result. And then just a little work with our IT friends and a little work with the IT department from Element, and we were able to have those additional applications up and going. So we could really customize things the way we wanted them. So we have a traditional application, we have a dual enrollment early college application, and we now have one for our selective admission programs such as nursing and radiography. So again, that allows us to adapt the application for each student type where we don't always need the same amount of information. But it is still all transferring into our system, which we use Colleague, seamlessly and coming back over into Element for us to be able to work with those students. I think the other thing I really appreciate is the ability to set workflows for the communication that goes out after applications are completed and processed. So a set it and forget it. And if a date or something changes, it is so easy to go back in, update that email, and the next time it goes out, it is going out with the change that we've made. Another great thing is it's easy to adapt who conversations are going to. So we have it set up whenever a student submits a request for information, it goes to one of our staff members to make that phone call to connect with the student. Unfortunately, that person's leaving, so I was able to easily go in and reassign who will be now doing the outreach calls. And again, it was immediate in that change. So while we, again, appreciate our friends in IT, it is totally adaptable for us here in admissions to be able to just go in and make the change and move forward.
This is like music to your ears, isn't it, Daniela? I know you're sitting over there nodding,
Yes.
you're like nodding your head and you're like, yes,
I
yes,
love this. I was like, there's 3 solid examples, like right off the bat of, I think Brendan used the term empowerment, right? So it's really empowering the Kellogg team to make these decisions and these actions in real time, meeting the student where they are and effectively decentralizing your process operations. So that's our main ABC points that we like to hit for Element. So this podcast is over. We've accomplished it all.
Great. Well, this has been fun.
Really
Thank you
short
for
episode.
having me.
Thanks for being on, Jenni.
Yeah. And and even when you have something established within the system, so we were getting a lot of phone calls from students who were unsure about how to create their password. So we were able to create a new communication and build that right into the middle of a workflow that was already established. So again, this example of when we start to notice common trends from students, we can then begin to educate them and try to help them before they have questions. This idea that a lot of, especially at community colleges, students don't know what they don't know. And so how do they know to ask? That's where it becomes our responsibility, especially in admissions, to help them learn those things and to have it right there, the tools. And again, Element is user-friendly on their phone. So they could fill out the application on their phone and then be able to read those emails that the way that they're created can be seen. They look pretty on both a computer, a tablet, and a phone, and are readable, whichever way the student's able to access that information.
All right, so we're hiring for a sales rep here at Element, just in case you're interested. Oh,
yes, I'd like to let my supervisor know that I'm planning to stay in my job for a while. So, Nikki, we're okay.
That's incredible.
No, I love it. It's beautiful because this is what we want people to get out of it, right? We want there to not be a big load on the I team. We don't want you to have to go out and hire. We were talking to someone the other day who ultimately, at their other institution, they picked a different platform other than Element, and the implementation process, they had to bring trailers in for teams to come in and actually come in and implement it. And like that lift, that load, the burden that it puts on and the lack of empowerment that a lot of other solutions provide, that's exactly what we're trying to avoid here, which is why you see the intentionality with an easy to use platform. You see how heavy we've leaned into generative AI as a piece of the platform, because those are the key productivity pieces and the key pieces that make Element so easy to use. So I love hearing all of it. I could listen to you talk about it all day long because you are using it how it should be used.
I go back to the implementation. I've talked to several schools who were thinking about bringing on Element, and they were concerned about the workload. And I said, yes, it's some work the first, however long you decide to take on the implementation, but then it really is a set it and forget it. So yes, I'm the project lead, but I spend very little time on the back end of doing anything in Element because it is so built to just keep going. And if I need to make a change, I go in and make a change, but I'm not managing the system on a daily basis. I'm in there looking at applications and processing and pulling reports, but it's not something I have to think about every day, which I know can be concerning for people who are bringing on a new platform. Is what is this going to take away from me? Do I have to hire a new staff member just to manage the platform? You do not. Once it is up and going, it is very much a self-sufficient platform.
That's awesome. I love hearing that. Jenni, can you pull out 1 or 2 results that you have seen from, even if it's a workflow that you set up, that RFI workflow, or even if it's an improvement to that application, maybe share an example of where you've seen improvement?
So our old application was a homegrown system, and if a student had already been at Kellogg and wanted to reapply, they had to know their student ID number. And very often, to reset it, they had to have the correct email on file, which, as we know, a lot of us have 7 or 8 emails, and we never remember which one we used when we do something. So it meant a lot of frustration from students. We were probably receiving 5 to 10 calls a day with students who were unable to complete the application. When we moved to Element, it now takes less than 4 minutes for a student to complete the application, and we probably get 1 call a week, if that. And it's usually because the student had already applied and forgot what email they used, and we just need to remind them. Even the simple fact of resetting an email or resetting the password if they have an account is so user-friendly and can be done in 2 minutes. So we have seen an increase in our applications because of the ease of use for our students. The other really nice thing is students get nervous, like, I don't know my student ID, and we say, that's okay. We'll catch it on the back end, and we'll be able to link if you applied yesterday with a Gmail account and 2 days from now you apply with a Yahoo account. Don't worry, we'll pair them together. So I think that has been our biggest improvement. The ability to the ease in which it is to apply, and our ability to have a separate application for all 3 student types that we have that I mentioned earlier. The other big thing is the email communication, for us to be able to have that be automated and then to be able to see the data that comes behind that email. So here in Michigan, we have a program called Michigan Reconnect. It's designed for students 21 or older who can receive free in-district tuition and fees. We were actually able to set up an automated email based on the data the student puts in on their application. So based on their birthday, if they have a Michigan address, they automatically get the Reconnect email. We don't have to think about it or pull that information. And that email has about an 82% open rate, which means, which is above industry standard. It is
way above.
Yeah, it is tailored to the student. It is sent timely. It is sent the next day after they apply. And I'm going to put a plug in for the AI, because once that came out, I used that to change some, especially the header. I am not good at writing headers for emails. And so the AI was able to adapt to that. And we saw our click rate go up once we changed the header on that. So there's an example of an email that just goes out to the correct population after the student applies, and then they're able to take, and it has a call to action to it that we see students doing.
Oh my gosh. Textbook maneuver.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, from beginning to end. And even, I will even say, like, leveling up the use of Copilot to improve subject lines, to improve preview text. The fact that you're tracking those open rates and those conversion rates. But this really is, we talk a lot about the segment of 1 at Element 451 and how we're building for the segment of 1. This is such a great example of a very niche and unique scenario that you are able to personalize for those students, and a good opportunity for those students too that you don't want them to miss out on.
Absolutely.
So that's fantastic. I love this.
I'll also give a plug for the forms. So we have a request for information form specifically for our allied health programs, and we are allowed to make an email for each of the 6 programs. So if a student submits the request for information for our dental hygiene program, the workflow knows to only send them the email for dental hygiene. And so we can really, again, adapt that communication based on the student and what they're trying to do. Instead of a blanket that then directs them to a nebulous website, it is all tailored to the student.
Yeah. Student-centered engagement is exactly like what you'll see a lot of those taglines on our website. Everything that we say, right, is whenever you put the student at the center of what's driving the personalization, the content, when things are happening, that's when it becomes so much more powerful, right? And that's leads to Daniela's point, to the audience of 1 that we're constantly pushing for. And the AI is really, and I know we talked about this when we talked earlier, Jenni, is the more that you see with it, you have some initiatives there over the summer where you're going to take a deep dive into maybe redoing some of those comm plans. And I was telling you about how AI, the assistants that we have in there now, are going to change your life. So one of the other things that we talked about, you mentioned that you have these epiphanies, right? These epiphanies sometimes of you're looking at something and you're like, oh, well, we should do that. What are some of those things where you had those epiphanies and put it in? And what are some that you've had recently that that are on the to-do list?
So as we were bringing it on, we wanted to go slow to make sure we're kind of becoming experts before we dove in too deep and felt overwhelmed. So we started with the application, then we did the communications and the workflow. We recently brought on the appointments, which has been a game changer for us, to be able to link that page to each employee's calendar. So it syncs up and they don't have to manage two different calendars, for the meeting maker to come in and go right onto our calendar. So we are notified when new appointments happen. It happened to me at 9:00 this morning. I had a student make an appointment for 4:00 this afternoon, and I got the email and I added it to my calendar, and now I can prep for them to meet with me. The ability for the appointments to kind of identify who does what. So I'll meet with a student to talk about selective admissions and to talk about applying, but I don't do campus tours. But we can have people who are doing campus tours and video appointments. And just that kind of meet the needs of our staff. We have one staff member who likes to give an hour-long campus tour because he is a little long-winded. We have someone else who feels like they can handle a campus tour in a half an hour. So they are, again, able to adapt the appointment length based on their preferred style as well. So the student doesn't know anything different. They say they want to have a phone appointment to talk about applying to Kellogg. They pick that option and it tells them the staff members that are available, and they can move forward from there. That's been one of our most recent epiphanies, was bringing that on board and having that readily available. We also all have it in our email signature. So now when we reach out to students and we get a lot of, we'd like to meet with you. When are you available? All you have to do is send your individual link and say, feel free to find a time that works for you. Instead of this, I'm available from Tuesdays from 9 to noon and on Wednesdays and then inevitably it takes them a week to reply and all those times are gone. So this really allows the student to pick what works for them in the platform, whether it's phone, video, or an in-person appointment. We can meet their needs using the appointment scheduler.
Hey, it's Mallory. Exciting news! I'm hosting the Engage Summit in Raleigh on June 25th and 26th, and I'd love to meet you there. Together, we'll dive into the mind of the modern student, what fires them up, how they interact, and what they expect in today's digital age, and how tools like AI help put them in the driver's seat of their education. We have some terrific speakers, including our closing keynote, New York Times best-selling author Jeff Selingo. Sessions will dig into practical ideas and innovative strategies to get your team more student-centered and ready to adopt AI. And many of your favorite Enrollify hosts are presenting too, like Jamie Hunt, Jenni Lee Fowler, and Brian Gross. Use the discount code Enrollify50 for an extra $50 off your registration. Learn more and register at engage.element451.com. We can't wait to see you there.
Now, Jenni, once you're able to get BoltBot on board and deploy our army of assistants, then you'll have AI making appointments for you. It's going to be beautiful.
Yes, we are trying to build that into our budget for next year to bring that on. Danielle and I have been in talks recently. We're super excited about that as well. And again, we know so many students in this day they're okay talking to a bot. They want to see if they can get their question answered before they speak to a person. And so I think, again, meeting students where they have that quick question. The joy of the BoltBot is that it can be answered based off of the information on our website. But then if they can't find it, then they can come to a person. But for some reason, students like to contact us at 2, 3 o'clock in the morning. And unfortunately, we aren't available then. And so this will give us, I know, right? So I remember those days, but I'm no longer in those days. So really helping students get the information when they need in a timely manner is the thing that we're really excited to bring that part of Element on. It's probably the last piece we are not using right now.
I love just hearing you talk, Jenni, about being so student-centric empathetic and aware of your students and student first, because everything you've said has been for the benefit of the student, but it has also been for the benefit of your team. So when you get BoltBot and it's answering those frontline questions, your team can now focus on what personal connections they need to make or when they need to intervene. Listening to you talk about the appointments and different people using it, how are you getting your end users up to speed? How are you training them? So, because it sounds like the plan that you have in place really does put that student first. What's the trick here? What's the tip?
Sure. When we first brought Element on, I went on a tour of all of campus. So every staff member at KCC had the opportunity to practice applying to KCC and understanding the communication chain that happened as a result. Now, on an end user basis, it's mostly used by our admissions staff right now, and we talk about it on the regular. And when a new staff member comes in, we have them sit down and they get an account on day one, because you can't really screw it up. So we talk to them about going in. We actually have a scavenger hunt we have them do of, here's a student's ID number, go in, had they applied? What program did they apply to? What's their email address? This student applied. Here's an email address, has the student applied, and being able to get them used to that. And then it's just becoming the habit of when we talk to a student on the phone, we pull up their Element account and be able to answer that next question for them. So a student may call and ask how to apply, but the conversation shouldn't end there. Again, going back to that idea of they don't know what they don't know that the next step is to send their transcripts or to take placement testing or to fill out their FAFSA. And so that's where it helps us to have it always be open and have the staff be just readily able to use it and to make notes and to be able to say, I'll send you a follow-up email with this information because you're driving, as you've asked us some really important questions that you can't write down. So that it then has their email right there. We can confirm their contact information is correct and send off that email. As we have brought on new things, we then have additional training. So when we did appointments, we brought appointments on. I actually scheduled time for us in a computer lab, and everybody was in there. We were all linking our calendars together to make sure it did correctly. And then we were all making appointments with each other so you could see what it looked like on both ends. So what does it look like when I make an appointment and what communication do I get? What does it look like when a student makes an appointment with you so you understand that? So there's very intentional training, knowing that people learn better. We're kind of hitting all learning styles, the visual, the listening, and the tactile learning as we're training staff on how to use the system.
Amazing. I just wanted to ask for a copy of the scavenger hunt.
Okay.
I was going to say, I knew as soon as I talked to Jenni and she told me the scavenger, I was like, oh, Danielle is going to love the scavenger hunt idea.
We do the same thing in Colleague as we're teaching staff how to use Colleague and which screens they need to use. It's being able to go and find that information. We've really cut down on our need to even open Colleague half the time because it's all in Element. But sometimes it hasn't transferred over, or we just don't have a good way to transfer it. So sometimes you have to have both open. But I'm a firm believer in the training process of doing by example and really helping the staff. The first time you are in there should not be when you're talking to a student. You should be in there and familiar with it to then be able to readily access it when you do start to talk to students.
Wow. So cool. Yeah. I think that whenever you talk about empowerment, it has to start in training, and you have to get that buy-in, because if it's, even though it's an easy to use platform, if it was just you, Jenni, right, that would still be extremely overwhelming with all the other stuff you have. But the buy-in, the empowerment comes with buy-in, in something that it sounds like you've done in droves, is create that buy-in and the normalization of, this is the tool that's going to help you do your job. And if you see something that you think could make it better, let's make it better and act on it. And that is huge. Those epiphanies you have and then the action on them, that's what's made you all so successful using it. So I just love hearing all of that.
Last summer, we had State of Michigan provided schools with a grant to help students with catch up from potential learning loss from the pandemic. And so we started a program called Kellogg Kickstart, and that office, our Center for Student Success, was trying to figure out how they were going to get students to apply for Kickstart. And I was like, Element451. And we created a form application that then links with their traditional application, and it tracks. It's super easy for the student to be able to go in and apply and customize the questions that we need for that specific platform. We haven't even talked about the reports yet, but it is able to export the people who have applied every morning at 6:30 a.m. The 4 people who work on Kickstart receive the Excel spreadsheet with who had applied since the day before, since they can process those. So it's really becoming around campus. I'm getting calls of, can Element help me with this thing that I want to do that we're struggling to figure out how to have students apply or how to track them? Or can you run a report for me with this information?
That's awesome.
Yeah. We ask a question on our application about t-shirt size. We can't store that anywhere in Colleague, but once a month, we randomly pick 10 students and send them a t-shirt with a hand-signed note from the admission staff saying, we're so excited to see you. So, we want you to come to campus. And then it's fun to track how many students actually come when they've gotten the t-shirt. And even if they don't come, that's okay. We've gotten the word out, but they are getting the correct t-shirt size, which as somebody who's a little bit bigger, getting a small t-shirt does not feel good to me. And so to get that correct t-shirt size with that handwritten note, we think is a way that it lives a little touch and you feel seen. And that's something we've been able to do with Element, because every question on your application does not have to go into your SIS. It can just be used for you.
So I know we made a joke about how Element was hiring, but is Kellogg hiring?
Yes.
Because I would like to be a part of the team that picks the t-shirts and does the scavenger hunts. And yeah. That's so personal. And especially in this day and age when you don't see that, there's not an opportunity for that. What a smart, fun way to take something like asking a t-shirt size and making something real from it, Jenni. That is awesome. You mentioned reporting too. Dive in a little more to that, because I think people don't know the fact that you even mentioned exporting at 6:30 every morning. The 4 people who need this report, that's another set it and forget it.
Absolutely. And I do a daily import, which is so easy for me to just pull the report, plop it in, and rerun it to update information.
That's awesome.
So both the import, so you have a list of students, maybe you've been to a high school fair and they didn't have their phones because the school doesn't allow phones, so you can't have them scan the QR code. You've collected their cards. You can easily put that in an Excel spreadsheet and load that right into Element, and it will update all of those students or create new accounts for those students in Element. So you're not spending all of that time hand typing out all of that information. The same thing is true for the exports. So we may have, like we talked about with the Kellogg Kickstart, that goes every morning out to those folks so they know who has applied. We also use it sometimes. So Element has the great thing with segments. So you can pick a particular group of students who applied for the fall semester for the Associates of Science degree who are from Hastings, Michigan. And you can create that segment and export it out and give it to that center to make phone calls, or you can send a specific email because you've created that segment. So the import export is also super easy to do and be able to get information that you need out of the system.
That's awesome. And I think we've seen just really not only the heart of Kellogg, but like your heart, Jenni, and kind of what drives you, what you care about. And I know this is something that we talked about. You knew this was coming. When are you in your element? We have to ask that on In Your Element podcast. So when are you in your element? And I think I have an idea of where this is going to go just based off of talking to you over the past 30 minutes. But Jenni, when are you in your element?
I think I am most in my element in the work setting, when I am working with a student or a group of students to help them understand the power of education. That is what I really like about working at a community college, is helping students see the power that education can bring to help themselves and their families as they can have a higher earning potential. So talking to exploring students who think they aren't college material and talking to them about community college is college, and you can be very successful starting here and moving on to a university or entering the workforce. But it's helping normalize that process for students who maybe don't feel seen all the time, and having those conversations and having them have the aha moment of, yes, I can do this. our space where admissions is, we are in what's called the Hub Enrollment Center, and sitting down with a student and having them fill out the application and going, congratulations, you are a college student, as soon as they hit the submit button. And then they get all excited and helping students register. We had a great story of we helped a student register at the start of the fall semester, and she turned to us and said, I've been trying to do this for 5 years and it's actually happening now. And those are the moments where I feel most in my element, with being able to help students take that next step to the importance of education. In my personal life, it is being with my family. I have a niece and a nephew that I'm super close with, and so being with them is always really special to me.
If I were your niece and your nephew, I would ask you for college advice, for learning advice, for process advice. So they are very lucky to have you. Your team is very lucky to have you. We were lucky to have you on this episode. Thank you for sharing all of these amazing things that you're doing at Kellogg. You have it down. You're a professional. What's next for you? Jenni, where are you looking to grow and see how else you can push Element into the work that Kellogg is doing?
Yeah, I think our next step is to really reevaluate our communication plan, especially using the AI platform as that. It's been about a year since we've had everything set, and I think a good professional is always re-looking and trying to do things better. I'm not one to just sit on my laurels and say, well, that's done. I don't have to think about that again. I want to still be making sure we're meeting the students' needs. What are the questions we're getting a lot of calls on that could be put into a communication platform? Or we have a microsite we call it the welcome site that students can access to see their checklist and to get helpful tips for them. Revisiting that site, is that still meeting the students' needs? So that's really kind of my summer plan, is to just really think about the whole picture, and what's been brought on new from Element, because you guys are always bringing on great new changes, and what haven't we taken advantage of that would be helpful?
I love that. And as a Disney fan, a fellow Disney fan, Jenni, one of my favorite Walt Disney quotes was when he said, Disneyland will never be completed. It will continue to grow and change as long as there's imagination left in the world. And I think that is an incredible mindset to take, one that you have definitely implemented at Kellogg, and one that is going to continue to reap benefits because of that mindset. So
I take the approach, it's a Maya Angelou quote about, I did the best I could at the time, and when I knew better, I did better. And so that is the same approach here, is as I learn new things, and then I have the epiphany of, we could do that in Element. Why don't we have this email going out? So that's kind of the approach that I take as well.
That's awesome. Well, thank you so much. It has been incredible having you on. We just can't wait to see what lies ahead for Kellogg.
Awesome. Thank you very much.
Thanks so much, Jenni. Take care.
Bye, everyone.
In Your Element is part of the Enrollify podcast network. If you like this podcast, chances are you'll like other Enrollify shows too.
Our podcast network is growing by the month, and we've got a plethora of marketing, enrollment, and higher ed technology shows that are jam-packed with stories, ideas, and frameworks, all designed to empower you to be a better higher ed professional.
Our shows help higher ed marketers and enrollment professionals find their next big idea and feature a selection of the industry's best as your host. Learn from Mallory Wilsey, Artis Kadu, Maya Demishkovich, and so many other of your favorite leaders in higher ed.
Enrollify is made possible by Element451, the leading AI-powered, all-in-one student engagement platform, helping institutions create meaningful, personalized, and engaging interactions with students. Learn more at element451.com.